I was having problems finding somebody to come on the podcast, but I finally found somebody that was willing to talk. It was me! So, like I said before, I was having some issues finding people to come on the podcast. Did have some people lined up, and then they, either rescheduled or, took too long to schedule, you could say. And so I was left without a guest. And so in the spirit of wanting to post every other week, I decided, hey, I'll do a solo show. So here we go. If you're not that interested in listening to me, then this is probably where you'd click off. But we're just going to go for it, and I'm going to explain a little bit about why I started merchandise in the first place, and then kind of go through some of my story, some of my mindset, that type of thing, and then some of the things that I've been thinking about lately. And so, if you've always wondered why I started this channel, if you've ever, wondered what in the world is Randy trying to do with a podcast, why in the world does he think he needs a podcast, then this is the episode for you. Anyway, so I just want to go back to the last job that I had before I actually started my own business, was working at a grass seed warehouse. And I worked in a lot of the different departments at that grass seed warehouse for about 7 years. And in 2022, the need for what I was doing at the grass seed warehouse actually just kind of disappeared. Kind of a long story, but my need, or the need for me and for what I was doing, kind of went away. The work that I was doing just significantly decreased to the point that somebody else could easily do it. Like, for example, in September of 2022, I think I showed up to work twice in the whole month, and I only worked for maybe an hour or two in the morning, and then I was out of work. And so I was ready for something else, because I hate sitting around not doing anything. I tried to find some other stuff to do, but everybody else was pretty slow as well. And it kind of came at the right time, because I wasn't really happy working for somebody else. In fact, in those 7 years that I worked for that grass seed warehouse, I never really enjoyed any of the work that I did. And in I think it was May of 2022, I actually got put on probation by that company. I went into my supervisor's office for a meeting, a yearly review basically, and you basically have to talk about how you think that you're doing, what you think. Basically, could anything be better about you and about the systems and processes that we have in place? And here, let me just get this computer out of the way. It's kind of distracting. Anyway, so I went in to this meeting. I was not happy at that job, and I probably just should have just kept my mouth shut. But instead, I started talking, and I guess that attitude right there came from the previous 2.5 years where I was actually at a job at the same grass seed warehouse. I was working as a mechanic, and I wasn't really happy at that job either. There were some misunderstandings between me and my supervisor. I tried to talk it out. I tried to explain the way that I felt, and my supervisor basically told me, you know what, I'm not going to change anything. This is the way that we do it, and, I'm not going to change the way that we do it. And when I had taken that mechanicking job, I had told them that I was willing to work for them for 3 years. And when I had that conversation with my supervisor, it was about 6 months into that 3-year period. And so for the next 2 years, I didn't say anything. I smiled. I did my work. But on the inside, it felt like I was dying a little bit every day. Really did not enjoy that job at all. And it was causing a lot of problems for me mentally, spiritually, things like that. Like I said, I just felt like I was dying a little bit on the inside every day. Because I have like this creative streak, and if I don't feel like I'm contributing to the job in like new ideas and doing new things, um, I just I feel like I'm not really that valuable. I'm not really adding value. Um, what they were looking for was somebody to just show up and do the work, and that's not really me. I kind of want to carve my own groove. I want to do things my way. I'll just admit it. And just going in and just punching the clock, just doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's really hard for me. And so, um, with that misunderstanding, then I had the conversation with my supervisor about 6 months in. Then for the 2 years after that, like I said, I just smiled. I just did my work because I was like, I'm going to ride out these 3 years and then I'm going to leave. Um, and so, that was really rough on me, and I didn't complain, and I didn't, voice any of my grievances to my superiors at that point. And once I actually moved out of that job, um, and moved on, I didn't end up working there for 3 years because somebody gave me the advice that, mentally, spiritually, like, you are dying, so you should probably leave that job. That job is contributing to the issues that you're having mentally, and so you need to leave. So I went to my supervisors and I explained to them that I am actually leaving. I'm going to go do something else. And they were very supportive. And the whole 3 year stint thing that they had kind of outlined when I had interviewed for the job ended up just being something that they said, um, basically to weed out the people that, you know, considered this a job for like 3 to 6 months. Anyway, in that 2.5 years, I was miserable. And when I left that mechanicking job, I told myself, I'm never ever just going to shut up and be quiet. Like, if I have problems, I am going to air them out, so to speak. And that's the best way for me to like process stuff, is to talk about it. And so, going back to the last job that I had at that company, like I said, my supervisor brought me in for my yearly review. Um, and I had some grievances with the company and the processes and the people that I was working with. And so I aired them out. I told him very bluntly and very honestly what I thought about our operations and what I thought about some of the people that I worked with. And that did not impress him at all. And so I was on probation. Basically, if didn't show up to work without, you know, telling people ahead of time, if I didn't show up to work, or if I just made another big mistake or got in another fight, I was going to be fired. And so that was about May of 2022 that I got put on probation. And so I actually went back and I apologized for the way that I communicated. Um, didn't apologize for the things that I said. It's just I could have said them in a nicer way, and that was my fault. And I made things right with everybody that I had made angry. And, you know, just basically buckled in from May till August of 2022 and did my job, did what I was supposed to do. But at that point, like, I was ready to move on. Like, I was ready to, you know, work towards something that would bring more fulfillment to me, to where I could feel like I was really contributing and really making a difference. Um, and for me, like I said, I kind of have like a creative streak, and so I wanted to get into marketing, and I proposed, starting some marketing campaigns there at the company. The company did have some, I say somewhat of like a marketing department, but there wasn't a lot of marketing going on. And so I presented, hey, we should start these campaigns. We should do this with our marketing. And a couple people told me, yeah, that's a great idea. We love those ideas. Well, I don't know if they said they love them, but we like those ideas. And we would like to start doing things like that. But here's the problem. The head of our marketing now, um, you're going to have to convince him of your ideas. And I had been doing like little jobs here and there at this company in like graphic design, things like that. I even made a video for them explaining why I think that we should do like video production, things like that. And I had tried to present it to the marketing director. I don't really know what his official title is, but he's in charge of the marketing there. I had tried to present it to him, but just with some of the other projects that I had been doing for the company, um, I heard through the grapevine that he was threatened by me, like he didn't want me to take his job. And I wasn't looking to take over his job. I just wanted to work in something else besides export documents, which was what I was doing the last job that I had there at that company. And he wasn't really open to hearing my ideas. He wasn't really open to bringing me on board and having me work in the marketing department. And so I wasn't really into like the whole the politics thing of like trying to, you know, be best friends with him and like slowly move into a marketing role. That would have probably taken a year or two or three, and I really wasn't willing to look at that possibility. That did not appeal to me at all. So I called another local videographer, photographer, graphic designer type of a guy. Did some web development as well. And I asked him for a job, and he said he was looking for a web developer, and if I could do that, then he would hire me. But I loved running cameras, and at that point that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do like video production, photography, that type of stuff for businesses. And so, instead of working for either one of those people, I decided to start my own business. Like I said before, instead of taking 2 or 3 years to try to become best friends with this marketing director and like try to work my way into the marketing department there at that company, I just decided, you know what? I could go do it right now for myself if I start my own company, be my own boss, right? And what I learned since that time of starting my own business, I learned how much like business stretched me and made me grow. Like there was so much to learn. There was so much about business that I didn't understand. There was so much about myself that I didn't understand. And a lot of what I learned is that this stuff isn't as complicated as you might think, right? Yes, there's a lot to learn, but once you learn certain things or you're made aware of certain information, the tasks that come with it generally are not that hard. Or I shouldn't say hard, generally are not that complicated. Usually, solutions for businesses are not that complicated. They're actually quite simple. It's just they're usually things that people don't want to do. Like, for example, I didn't start a business up to that point because I thought it was way, way, way too complicated. Okay? And I don't know where I got that idea exactly. But once I had decided to start my own business, I Googled basically, like, what does it take to start a video production company in Oregon? And so, like you have to register your name with the state, your business name with the state, all of that type of stuff. And that was about it. Legally, that was about it. Now, if you want to do other things beyond that, like if you're going to do drone work, obviously you got to get a certification to do that commercially. if you want insurance to make sure that, just in case you ruin something on one of your clients' properties, that you have insurance to cover you. There's some things like that you could get if you wanted. But legally, all that you had to do was register your name with the state. I was like, what was so hard about that? It wasn't hard. There's instructions online of how to do it. You can do it yourself. Pay the money, go through the process, fill out the forms, and boom, you're done. And that realization right there of like, I wanted to start a business. Like I had wanted to start my own business for years. That was just something that I wanted to do one day. But like I guess I just never had actually sat down and looked at what it actually took. And usually it doesn't take that much. The first step, the just getting started step, is usually the hardest part for people. And so that's what I did. I bought my web domain. I built a website for myself. I registered my name with the state. I went to the bank and I got a business account made with my new, business. And, I got done with that process and I was like, that was so much easier than I thought. And like I'd said before, I've learned so much since then. I've grown so much as a human since then. And looking back at it now, with all of the things that I went through and all of the things that I learned, a lot of the things that I learned came from like painful mistakes. And looking back on it now, the last 2 years, if I would have known everything that I would have went through, I don't know if I would have done it. I don't know if I would have went ahead with that. I probably would have looked for a different job. But I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I took that chance and I took the plunge and I just decided to start my own business. Because here's the thing. There's a part of each and every human that desires to grow in some way or another. And for me, the thing that made me grow the most was starting my own business. Okay? And here's a little story. When I was in high school, my dad told me that I lacked commitment. He just came out and said bluntly, like, you have a problem with commitment. You don't know what it is. You've never been committed to anything. And he wasn't saying that harshly. He wasn't trying to be mean. He wasn't trying to, I don't know what you would say. Like, it was not mean-hearted at all. He was just trying to inform me. He was just trying to tell me, teach me in a way. But I remember the conversation very vividly, but I could never understood why he said that. And so I started my business, right? Got my name, got my bank account, got my website, social medias, all that stuff, dove in, and, I did some family and friends projects here and there. Nothing that was big and exciting, but, it was a good start. But within a couple of months, probably by November, the work ran out. Now what do I do? At this point, I have no idea. And one of the worst things that I ever did for myself was think that this entrepreneurship journey is just going to be some sexy, high output, grind my way to the top by myself. And so instead of talking to other business people, instead of going and getting advice from people that had already done it, I just decided to try to figure it out myself. And so for a month and a half, probably into December, the end of December, I tried. I tried calling people. There was people that had said, oh yeah, video sounds cool. So I would follow up with them and I would go talk to them and, yeah, I don't really know if video is what we need. And so we're going to take that money and put it towards something else. And I had no training in sales, persuasion. Um, I had no training in all of that. And one of the reasons why I started a video production company, number one, I loved it. But like the other reason was because it's 2000, at that point, it was 2022, and like everything is online now. In fact, like probably 90%, 95% of people's customers in the next 5 to 10 years, like the customers that they're going to have in 5 to 10 years, they're staring at their phone now. And so now would be a good time to create content, right? That was my thought. And so I just thought with like video production, like I'm not going to have to persuade anybody to hire me. Like the customers are just going to roll in and say, "Randy, we love your work. We want to work with you. We want you to make videos for us." But that didn't happen. In fact, selling video work was a lot harder than I thought. And when I started my business, I knew none of this stuff. And I didn't ask anybody about it either. And so I tried my own stuff from November till about December. And I I finally hit a dead end. Like I was like, I don't know. It's November and December. It's getting around the holidays. Like people people don't really want to like start marketing things around November or December. Um, and so people are like, yeah, let's just talk next year. Let's just talk next year. And so I'm out of work. And at that point, um, I have a wife and I have a son, and I need to pay the bills. And so December rolls around, and I got hit with some Instagram ads for some coaching, video production company coaching and sales, that type of stuff. Uh, and that is exactly what I needed at the time. So I bought, thinking back on it now, makes me a little bit embarrassed, but I went ahead and paid a guy from Instagram. I paid him a lot of money to coach me and to teach me how to find good quality leads and to help me get the clients that I really wanted to work with. And so for the next 5 months, which was like January through May, um, I put this plan into action. And I made some mistakes and I did not do everything correct. But through those 5 months, I just showed up every day. I mean, I would call people, I would email people, I would follow up emails, I would follow up calls, all that stuff. I joined a chamber of commerce and I would show up to those chamber of commerce meetings every week, trying to talk to people, trying to find my next client. And it was rough because I was getting a few clients, but I was not getting a lot of clients. And I was making a little bit of money. But my problem is like I had taken probably I had taken the majority of my savings and paid for this coaching. And so now I had depleted a big part of our savings, right? And he sold me on the dream of like you're going to be making so much money, and so like the cost of this program is going to be an afterthought very, very soon. Okay. I get that. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. So in December, I'd paid for coaching for the next 5 months. I put in the work and I was doing LinkedIn, calls, emails, all those things, and meeting with people at the Chamber of Commerce. And I wasn't finding any clients. And um, one day, I sat down at my desk and I had my desk kind of in a dingy hole in my house. It was crammed between a couple of dressers, which was probably another mistake. But I sat down there, and the last thing that I wanted to do was to email people. Last thing I wanted to do was to connect with more people on LinkedIn. The last thing I wanted to do was call more people. Last thing I wanted to do was try to talk to potential clients. And at that moment, I had this realization that if I don't do this, if I don't email people, if I don't call people, nobody's coming to help me call people. Nobody's coming to help me email people. Nobody's going to do it if I don't do it. And the light bulb went on in my head. And that conversation that I'd had with Dad so many years ago finally made sense. I hadn't known what commitment meant until that point. Anyway, and so there was just many things like that over the years since I've started my own business that have just been kind of like light bulb moments. Things that, teaching myself about myself. And so in May of 2023, I actually decided to go get a part-time job because at that time I had a daughter that was born, and I was making enough money for us to survive, basically, but I wasn't making enough money to pay for like midwife bills, things like that. And so I kind of put video production on the back burner. I still did a few jobs. I had a few jobs under contract, and so I completed those. And I did pick up some more work as well. Kind of did the video production on the side, and had a job that I did 4 days a week. That kind of took me away from pursuing the whole video production company full time. And there's times that I sit there and I wonder what I was doing wrong, and reflecting on all of that. And let's see, if somebody was to ask me now, like, what would you do different? I think number one, I would go work for somebody else doing video production or some type of marketing for a year or two. Whether I'm getting paid a lot, whether it's exactly what I want to do or not, I should have taken the time to go work for somebody else doing what I wanted to do. That's what I would recommend people do. Because I know that when I interviewed Connor DeLynn, he talked about that as well. Let me just pull up this video here. Really, he said it pretty good. He talked about like marketing degrees and how, some of that stuff is fairly useless. College isn't necessarily necessary for you to start your own business. But he did talk about, don't just skip college and then skip learning any lessons or anything about what you want to do. Go work for somebody else that has experience doing what you want to do. Here's the video.
To me, there's certain degrees that I just think are pointless today, like marketing or communications. What are you learning there? Now, what I would say for that is that doesn't mean, oh, I'm not going to do college. I'll just start my own thing right now. You won't be taken seriously, and you probably don't have the skill set in order to do it. So if you're going to do something like that, go find someone who's mastered their craft, that does what you want to do, that is where you want to be, and go ask one question, like, how can you provide value to them? And how can you learn it and get in the trenches?
That's one thing that I would recommend people do if they wanted to start their own business. You could go dive in right away and make all the mistakes, but I think just going and learning the process of somebody else first would be a huge benefit. Another thing that I would do is go find a mentor, somebody that cares about you, and somebody that loves you enough to tell you your ideas are stupid. If I would have just had somebody to tell me, look, dude, you think you know everything, but you don't. here's what you're doing wrong. Your idea that you just gave me, it has certain elements to it that are good, but like overall, it's a stupid idea. If I would have had somebody like that, I think that I could have. I think it could have been a lot more successful. I look at all of that, and really, when I look back at my whole entrepreneurial journey, I feel like a lot of these things happen for a specific reason. I'm not mad that a lot of these things happened. I'm not mad that the coaching that I got didn't help me in the time period that it was advertised to me for. I'm not mad that my video production company didn't work within 5 months. I'm not mad about all of that stuff. I think all of that stuff happened for a reason. And um, as I go forward, I like to keep that attitude. And also, another thing that I would recommend is focusing on the right thing. So I know I already showed you one clip from Connor DeLynn, but here's another one that I think was very, very good, and I wish somebody would have told me this right when I started. But let's look at this video.
This is true for life and in business. You should always be pretty clear about two things. One, like get really clear about where you want to go. What is the vision? What is the dream? Where do you want to end up? One of the best ways to go through that, I call it a blue sky thinking session. You should look at your life and go, if fear weren't a factor, if failure wasn't an option and money wasn't an issue, and you could do anything, like what would you do? Paint that picture. What would that look like, right? And then from that, the only other thing in my mind that you need to be confident about is what is your next step.
So I wish somebody would have explained, like, be very, very clear on where you want to go, what you want to do. We like to make a lot of these daily tasks, a lot of the daily things that we do, we like to complicate them so much. But paint a picture of what you want your life to look like in 6 months or a year and reverse engineer that thing to what is it that I could do today that's going to move me one step closer to achieving that goal. And I was given a little bit of that training, but it wasn't really pounded into me, and I didn't really implement it that well. And so that's another mistake that I made is I focused on the daily tasks, I focused on the daily problems, and really when you get so caught up in that stuff and your mind is full of that stuff and it's just rattling around in there, it's very, very overwhelming. And so I think that's just that I got bogged down. And I think that came out in the way I presented myself. I think it came out in the way I thought about myself. And it just, sales are a whole lot harder when you're talking to somebody that's borderline depressed. And so, at this point I can see why people probably didn't want to hire me. Like, dude, this guy's just, something's off about him. Anyway, and so Connor says to focus on two different things, like what you want your life to look like in the future, and also what's your next step. That's two things to focus on, right? So life gets a whole lot less complicated. Business gets a whole lot less complicated when we focus more on fewer things. So do your blue sky session, okay? Dream a while. And then reverse engineer the thing to the steps that you could do today that's going to move you closer to your goal. Hard times are going to come. With business, hard times are going to come. You're going to have hard days. You're going to have bad things that happen to you. Some steps of the business are going to be harder than others. And so, the question comes up, how do you keep yourself from getting discouraged? How do you keep yourself from getting bogged down, depressed, that type of thing? Because being an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, can be a very, very isolating type of situation. And so, with another interview that I did, it's a different Connor, but his name is Connor Watts. He talks about how to avoid some of that bog and slog of the everyday work. Let's take a look at that.
When you have a dream in your mind, when you're focused on the dream, you cannot help but do the work. But when you're focused on the work, it's very like your time is it's going to be grueling and you're going to end up quitting. It's the dream that the thing that excites you that propels you into the future. If you have that and it's clear in your mind, the work is just is whatever.
Like his whole thing is like just focus on the dream. All right? Focus on the dream, recite it to yourself in the morning, go to work, deal with the problems, deal with the stresses, deal with all of the things that come to you in the workday. But then at the end of the day as well, focus on your dream again and make sure that's your big focus instead of focusing all of your time and energy on problem solving or lead generation or whatever it might be for you. You know, always those things are important, and it's important that you put time and energy into those things, but set aside some time to get your focus back on the dream, back on where you want to go, and back to the thing that actually is going to propel you forward. Because if you're sitting at the supper table thinking about lead generation or closing tactics of sales or whatever, that's not going to propel you forward. Like I said before, I just bogged myself down with that stuff, and it really wasn't helpful. It really didn't make me a better person. It didn't make me a better salesman. It didn't make me a better business person to just always constantly be thinking about all of my problems. I really wish that somebody would have pounded that into me, the whole thing of focusing on the dream. And like I said, they had a little bit of training on it, but it wasn't really emphasized to me. Like maybe a question that I would have for you if you're thinking about starting your own business, or maybe you're not thinking about starting your own business, but you're just kind of going with the flow in life. Is like, are you really clear on your dream? And maybe we could do that. Talk about that another time. So I think that your dream. This is just me personally, what I think, what I believe. I think your dream is directly tied to like your purpose in life. For me, I think that God is going to put the dream, he's going to put the drive in your heart to do something, and that's directly connected to what he has um, what he has in mind for you for your life. And so getting really clear on your purpose will help the boring, mundane, and hard things. It'll make them feel not so much like a big deal. Because if you focus on the big thing, on the end result, on the thing that you really, really want in life, then like doing the work, like Connor was saying, doing the work doesn't seem so stressful. Keep your eyes on the prize, and the work will not seem as hard to work through. Yeah, that was not written well, but that was written by me. Anyway, and so, getting really clear on your purpose will help you decide what you should pursue at all costs, as well as a thing that you should be doing less or not at all. And here's the thing, getting really focused on something and almost like getting obsessed by it, everything that we want in life is going to require a sacrifice of some type. And even the things that we don't want in life, if we like, let's just say that you want to be fit. All right, you're going to have to sacrifice some time and some comfort to get fit, to go jogging, to pump iron, to do your push-ups, to do whatever, to eat healthy, right? Those are sacrifices that you have to make. Whereas, I guess if you don't really desire to be that fit, there's also sacrifices that you have to make. There might be health problems that you have to deal with. There will be, less motivation, less energy, less things that are, could be really important to you in your life. And so there's always sacrifices that we have to make. We talked a little bit about this earlier. If you want to make progress faster, you have to focus on fewer things, but focus on those fewer things, you have to focus on them more. And that's probably going to mean getting rid of distractions that are slowing you down. And truth be told, that might actually mean, spending less time with your current friends and, maybe building some relationships, making friends with people that are ahead of you in your journey, or people that are where you want to be, where you want to go with in life or in business or whatever that looks like for you. And so those are just a few of the things that I've been learning. One of the things that I want to accomplish in my life, I have this written down and I recite it to myself, is I want to help 100 people become more fulfilled and more happy in life. And I think that entrepreneurship provided the challenges, some lessons that I needed to learn. It provided those things to me, and it made me a more fulfilled and happy person. I know myself so much better. I've learned so many lessons. I've grown as a human. I've become more wise, I like to think. And I feel like entrepreneurship could provide a path for people to live a more happy and fulfilled life. And so I would love for more people to get into starting their own business. Or maybe it's a nonprofit for you. Maybe that's what you want to do. But I would love if more people would do that, because I think it would challenge them to become better people. So how am I going to do that? Like, I don't own a multi-million dollar business. I'm not, making money hand over fist. Like, I'm not driving the Bentley, and I'm not flashing the cash and wearing all the rings and all of that stuff. I don't got the Gucci. So like how am I going to help more people get into like entrepreneurship? And so my thought was like, if I can't teach people, maybe I can talk to people that have done business and have been successful, have started their own business, have taken the chance. And that's the whole reason behind the name of merchandise, is by like taking the chance. That was the whole thing with the dice, like rolling the dice, taking the chance. And eventually we would like to sell some merchandise. And so I just called it merchandise. And of course, the cool thing with branding nowadays is you just leave out essential letters in words, especially when you name a company. And so I left out all of the vowels in merchant, and then I just put the dice at the end. And so it's merchandise, right? Does that make sense? And then our slogan is mind your own business. I'm pretty sure that we've heard that from many, many people. I think a lot of times we hear that in a different context, like don't stick your nose in my business. But basically, mind your own business. I wanted to help people get the mindset, think the right way about business to where they could start their own business. And so that's the whole thing with mind your own business. So that's why I started the channel. And that's a little bit about my story. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you didn't, I apologize. This is half hour, 45 minutes. You'll never get back. But hopefully I inspired somebody. My whole goal in life is to inspire and educate people to start their own business. And so that's why I started this podcast. But I'm always on the lookout for more guests. They don't have to be a founder or like a serial entrepreneur or anything like that. They can just be somebody that has a high performing mindset, or somebody is really, really smart and could like give good insight on how people could think better and have a better mindset about life and in business. So if you have any suggestions for guests on the show, please leave them in the comments down below, because I am looking for guests, and that is probably one of the hardest things about doing this podcast is finding guests. And so if you have any suggestions, put them in the comments down below. Message me on Instagram. Do something. Give them to me somehow. I love talking to people. I love hearing about people's struggles, how they overcame it, things like that. I love hearing about all that stuff. And so I am open to any guests. I'm not saying that I will ask them to be on the podcast. And I'm not saying that if I do ask them to be on the podcast that they will accept, because there's been plenty of people that have just not really gotten back to me about being on the podcast. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Someday, it's going to be big enough to where people are going to want to be on this podcast. Next time, there's going to be a guest. The solo episodes are going to be very few and far between, and so you can look forward to some good, solid wisdom from an entrepreneur or a business owner in a couple of weeks. If you like what you see or hear, subscribe on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And as always, go out there and mind your own business.